Hey everyone, today I want to show you how I make my landscape and cityscape photos come alive and using a few of my favorite adjustments in Luminar AI. Hello and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux and today we're going to talk about how to make your landscape and cityscape photos pop. I love travel photography. It's what I absolutely adore doing. And going out and capturing a cityscape or a landscape with my camera is just a great amount of fun. So the image we're working with today is a photo that I captured while I was on a photo walk in Norfolk, Virginia. This is a building called the Pagoda. It's very colorful, very stylized. You can see it's in a neat garden area. But the sky was bland. It needs a little bit of extra love. And this is where Luminar AI really comes to life. I want to take a moment and say hello to Joseph, Jim, and Joe. So glad you guys are able to join us today. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So a few of my favorite tools for working with this type of photo are always going to start with Enhance AI. Let's go ahead and pull up that Accent AI. And I like to think of Accent AI as like your automatic button in other photos or photo editors. It does contrast, color, tone, all of those things. You can see it really brings up the shadows, it pops the colors, does some really great stuff. There's not a whole lot of sky detail in this particular image. I could pull up Sky Enhancer. You can see it brings in a little bit of extra color, but this is an image that's a really great candidate for a sky replacement, which we're going to get to in just a moment. Before we do that, I want to go to our Composition AI and take a look at the composition we have going on here. I think I'll go ahead and level this image and use our upright correction here, and that's going to take into consideration some of the buildings here in the background. And you can see it did a pretty good job back here, but it actually tilted this building here, I think because it's round, not a great candidate for that. So I'm going to actually click on Reset, and I'm going to use this, my arrows here, move my mouse just outside the canvas, get that double-headed arrow, and just manually straighten this a little bit. There we go. Now I think there's also a lot of negative space in here that doesn't need to be there, so I'm going to also crop this to a 16:9. There we go. Brings out a little bit more of the detail here, brings us in more to the subject, takes out a little bit here of the foreground that's not necessarily adding to the story, and I think overall just looks better. All right, from there, my next favorite tool is going to be Structure AI. I love a really highly detailed photo, and Structure not only brings out mid-tone clarity and detail, but it also does some really cool stuff with color. You can see as I pull this up, it's kind of changing how those colors are represented. We don't want to go up too terribly high, but I think right about there looks really good. So I'm liking what's happening here in the foreground. I like the building. I think here in the foreground, right here, all of this foliage is a little bit too bright. Now we could go in there with a gradient mask or brush and pull down the exposure, but if you notice, this whole area is dealing with greens and yellows. We can target that specifically with our color tool and go into HSL, and I'm going to switch from the hue channel here to saturation. I'll pull back, desaturate those greens a bit, not too much, and you'll notice a lot of what we interpret as green is actually yellow. So if I pull back on that yellow saturation, you'll see it's taking the edge off of these here. Now we can also go to our luminance channel and darken down those yellows and darken the greens. And now that's really drawing our attention up to this building and taking the attention off of the foreground. Let's take a look here at the before and after. Huge difference. Now I think I might have pulled back a little bit too much on that green saturation. Let me go back to my green saturation. Bring that back up a tiny bit. I think that looks good. All right, moving on. The big glaring issue in this image is the sky. So we're going to jump down to our Sky AI tool and pop in a new sky. I'll click on the Sky Selection tool and take a look through the list here and see what works. Now when replacing the sky, we want to pay attention to the direction of light. In this instance, you can see that it's brightest over here on the right, so the sun was going down over here on the right. This building here was already in shade, so we don't have any strong shadows that we need to contend with. We just want that light source to be over towards the right side. So let's go ahead and scroll down and find something. This one could work here. You can see the light is coming from the right side. Let's go ahead and pop that in there and see what we get. Give it just a moment to load. All right, well that actually looks pretty good. It's a little bit bright, but we can adjust that. And you can see that it didn't quite line up here on the sides. There's a little bit of a gap here, so let's fix that. I'm going to go into our sky orientation, click on that sky position button, give that a second to load, and that pulls up our gradient. We can go ahead and move that down, and that's going to move the placement of that sky to fill in those areas. We can also widen this to give a bigger transition area or pull it down a little bit lower. I think that looks really, really good. And that's really kind of believable because the sun is already down back behind this building and there's no strong shadows here hitting a foreground, so it actually works. So let's go ahead and play a little bit with our scene relighting. We brought in a lot of really rich colors in the sky which aren't currently being reflected in that foreground. So let's pull up our relight strength and that relight saturation. That's going to bring in some of those warm tones from the sky and really make it blend seamlessly together. If you had any humans in this image, you'd also want to use Relight Human. That targets a person and wraps the light around them for a really seamless result. There's no reflections to work with in this image, so let's jump down to sky adjustments. I'm going to very slightly defocus that sky, just a very, very small touch. We'll bring up the atmospheric haze. Typically, we're used to seeing a sky with some haze, so adding that haze to me really helps make a scene more believable. I'm going to keep the warmth where it is, and I can either lighten or darken this just to get it to where it looks natural. And I think that looks absolutely great. Let's take a look at this before and after adding our sky. So there's the before, and there's the after. I mean, it completely changes the look and feel of an image. So if you happen to be traveling and you get to a place that's really cool, but the sky isn't doing what you want, maybe you expected a beautiful sunset and you got a gray sky, or you got there a little bit too late, the sun had already gone down and those colors had faded. Well, this is where Sky AI comes in and can really help bring back what you imagined or possibly even what you saw and missed and make it come to life here in the program. So I think the last thing I want to do on this particular image is add a subtle vignette. So I'm going to go to my vignette tool and I pull down the amount slider all the way to -100. I'm going to pull the size down a little bit smaller and go into our advanced settings. Make this more round, bring that all the way to the right, and I'm actually going to bring that size down a bit smaller. We'll bring that feather up nice and high for a smooth transition, and we're going to add a little bit of inner light here. Now we click on Choose Subject, and the reason I bring this all the way down and make it very, very dark is so I can really see what's at the center of my vignette and where I'm placing it, and I want that pagoda to be right in the center. Now that I've placed it, I can grab my amount slider and pull that back up, and we just want kind of a kiss of darkness around those edges. You don't want anything too terribly dark or dramatic. So I think right about there looks amazing. And voila, that is how I would edit this photo using a few of my absolute favorite tools in Luminar AI. Let's take a look at our before and our after. It really is a stunning difference. And it amazes me on a daily basis how much we can do with this program to really make our images come to life quickly and easily. If you guys like this tutorial, make sure you give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. We always appreciate seeing that. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any topics that you would like to see covered in future episodes. With that, I want to wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Make some pictures, have fun, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.